blessings the company supply given each and every one of us. Thank you for this opportunity for the commissioners to meet, to discuss the budget, give us the wisdom and the guidance and direction to make the decisions that are best interest of the citizens of this county. Father God, these things I do humbly pray in your name and the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, our risen Lord and Savior. Amen. Mr. County Manager.
Thank you, sir. Good morning. Thank you for attending. Just want to go through this in as much little detail as you prefer, so you gain comfort in a positive vote towards a financial plan for our next fiscal year. First and foremost, I think we should probably go through what you have. What you have been given is the worksheets that are passed out to all the department heads on February 17th this year, and were given back to administration March 31st. So when you look at the lines, remember most in pages 1 through 59, the most important columns are request and recommend. Request is what the department head asked for. Recommend is what we have discussed and we're bringing to you for consideration. The column to the far right is the explanation. Some are going to have more explanation than others. Some department heads don't choose to include explanation. I choose to include explanation. It just makes this process a little bit easier. And to the left of request, you're going to see some prior year comps, okay, budget, actuals, etc. Now, are there questions on that?
Did you clarify my question, page 19, about the economic development? I was looking at it to tell you what I asked. I kept looking at and I think it's just on that one. You see the 24 budget column, but it doesn't say 24-25 budget.
Okay.
You see what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. And since I'm new, I didn't know if the economic development had a different fiscal year. And that's why I was asking Kyle about that before we got to the meeting, because everything else is 24, 25, 24, 20, 23, 24. And for some reason, that column was confusing to me.
Okay.
If that makes any.
It perfect sense. Trey, is that the request and recommend budget that you submitted?
That's right.
So
It's just an old spreadsheet that I used on it. They changed the columns on those.
So the first column, 24 budget would be 24-25 budget, correct? I mean, I assumed that, but I was,
okay. Thank you.
You don't just say that.
yeah, well,
So, are there questions on these spreadsheet formats? If there are none, when we look at pages 60 to 143, you're going to have the Munis printouts of the requested and recommended budgets from our actual software. And then page 144 to 193 is going to be the expenditure budgets. Okay. What you're going to see is a balanced budget, as is required by the state of North Carolina, that I'm presenting to you. Okay. Are there questions, excuse me, to this point? Okay. So I presented to you a budget message or budget memo. Does everyone have that? This is the highlights of the current year budget. I'm sorry, the proposed budget. So as we look at the approved 24-25 budget in comparison to the proposed 25-26 budget, in the general fund, we see a 5% increase in spending and revenue. Okay. 5%. Last year or current year is the base case for our next year or our proposed year. Okay. There's a 5% increase in one fiscal year. So I just want you to know that is very, very close. That is not, otherworldly different. It is very close to the prior year. There's going to be some changes, some increases and decreases throughout the different departments and their needs for the proposed fiscal year from the current fiscal year, but it is not earth-shatteringly different, okay? We're going to go through that in a lot of detail in just a moment. What I want you to give attention to, please, is the budget message. And we'll just go through each of these very briefly before we jump into the spreadsheets, okay? First and foremost, this budget was balanced with the same tax rate that we've had for the last 18 or 20 years, 0.786 per $100, okay?
It hasn't been quite that long,
And not that,
probably 12.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it
that's
was a little
closer,
longer than
closer to 12, 2011,
About 12.
11 when we changed,
About 11.
10, 11, somewhere about long in there.
It's about 11.
It's been a while.
11 or 12.
It was 75.
All right.
We went at 3.
For a very long time, we're using the same budget, same tax rate, I'm sorry, 0.786 per 100. With Stephanie when I need her. Okay, now we did have a slight increase in the tax base revenue and expenditure estimates. Okay, the revenue, we're approximating at 11 million. Okay, that's what the total assessed value of property in Greene County is, real and personal. There are some staffing enhancements that were accepted. The state mentioned to us that we crossed a benchmark to where 3 full-time dispatchers could be implemented rather than 2 full-time and 1 peak time dispatcher, okay? Now, I feel like that it's our responsibility to put that dispatcher in there so they are in the budget. I've also put in 4 deputies for increased coverage for the sheriff. And, you know, he and I both agree that that's a need for us and it can be deviated from perhaps under certain conditions. But for right now, I think it's a good proposal that we have.
You fully staffed, man, right now. I know,
It's got to know.
that's not counting these 4. That's not counting these 4.
I would also like to make mention, I did have a request for
But I've
another.
had several people that have called and inquired about or have a job. And I've been turned away because I know.
I did have a request for a position in DSS, but rather than add a position to the position classification plan, I asked that they adjust the current position classification plan, reclassify a position to the desired new position. So we have the same number of people in the position classification plan. There's just a different classification for one of those individuals. And that met the needs of that department, according to the director. Let's see. I really shot for a 3% cost of living adjustment, and the CPI dictated that 2.5 was what I could justify in my presentation, in my proposal, okay? At the end of February, CPI was 2.9. I shot for 3. In the end of March, that changed, it shifted downward to 2.4. And if CPI is our base or our benchmark, that's what we need to stick with. So I adjusted to 2.5.
I'll make one comment.
Yes, sir.
I'm glad for that. And as you know, that we've got the little charts up here on the wall. And so since 2018, that will put our pay raises for our employees at like 36.5%.
At least.
At least.
That's right.
And it's really a little bit cumulative if you look at it.
Yeah.
But, you know, their numbers above 36.5% since 2018.
Yeah, the Board of Commissioners has made a conscious effort to increase the pay, the take-home pay of all employees. And we all appreciate that. Okay.
We appreciate the employees.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. But thank you. Thank you.
They've got some great employees.
We do. So we'll move on to educational institutional support. Lenore Community College asked for their first increase in 15 years. And they asked for a 10% increase from $240,000 to $264,000. Greene County Schools asked for an increase and the money was not there for their increase. We will strongly consider that the next fiscal year. And it remains at the same level of the 24-25 budget. Although I will mention they did have an increase in their sales tax contribution, which is their capital funding. As sales tax goes up, a certain percentage of Article 40 and 42 go directly to the school, and that did go up, and you'll notice that in the budget. Yes, that helps them. News regional libraries, their budget stayed the same as prior fiscal year as well. We move on to number 6, the fleet management and capital investment, our vehicle replacement plan. You can see that there are 4 vehicles for the sheriff. There's an F-150 for EMS that's replacing that Expedition. There's an F-250 for emergency management, replacing another F-250. An F-150 in the water department, replacing an older F-150, and then 2 vans in the transportation department in this fiscal year. We have our public safety and first responder program. That is up to 10 departments at $2,500 per department, $25,000 total. We looked at some different ways to compensate departments for this service, and we have not come to a new way to do it that is manageable to this point, but we continue to look for ways to improve this. Okay.
All of us taking advantage of this.
Say it again, please.
All the departments are 10 doing this.
10 are doing it. There's 1 that's not.
Let me ask a question, because
Please.
I know Derek had a concern about it putting them over when they can get a grant.
Yep.
But can't they lower their tax rate a little bit to get under that?
Yep. Yeah.
Because that's what Scuffin done, correct?
I believe
Last year?
they didn't tell me, but it appears to me that they've gotten a tax rate, their total revenue below $50,000, which qualifies them for additional
Right.
that other departments aren't doing at this time.
Mhm.
So I don't believe it's the county's responsibility to alter our funding or our programs when you are already granting them the ability to increase and lower their tax rate
Right.
to control their revenue streams.
Right.
The burden is on them,
Yeah.
not on you all.
So the authority is on there,
The
actually.
authority is on you, the burden is on them. You're granting the authority to tax.
Exactly.
Yes.
Let me explain this, just so we got a prosecutor here, and Trey and I just talked about it before the meeting started. What's happened there is that about, 3 or 4 fire departments who are over, to get the Office State Fire Marshal grant. If you're under like $50,000, you have no match. If you go like, I know it's something left to grade 1 match. And then over $75 to $1 match. But there's like 3 or 4 departments who are like $1,000 over, so they want the county to withhold that first responder money, so they can stay under that level. You understand what I'm saying? It's like 3 or 4 departments. I don't remember. So Scuffin is one, Portland, $1,000 over. Scuffin is at 50, which is a little bit over, like 100.
We brought, Commissioner Burris brought this to our attention this week, and Brock, the Scuffin fire chief, had also contacted Brock. So Brock is looking at different options for them, to see how we can best fit to meet their need. So we'll report back at some point, but he's going to work with Robert to see what the solution can be.
Well, the bottom line is, we have worked with the fire departments throughout. They set their tax rates.
It's just my proposal with people like Todd is not expecting, so give him the option to then take the money, and other departments have the option to have the county withhold.
So it is McDonald's. So what I was trying to say was, we have traditionally, we have always worked with the fire departments. It's their call as what their tax rate is. We simply apply that tax rate for collection for them. And we're certainly going to continue to work with the fire departments. And, this is just an example of how we can work together for a positive end. And I do have one other little thing to say. It has nothing to do with the fire department. Going back, I think it was number 6 about the fleet management. Recognizing those 2 branches of transportation are not paid for with taxpayer dollars, with Green County taxpayer dollars. Is that a true statement?
85% federal.
Federal, we have a small.
We have a small portion.
15% match. It's not like we're paying for 2 large vans
So-
for taxpayer dollars.
So how it works is we'll spend the money and then we're reimbursed. So in this budget, you will see the expense for 2 and then the reimbursement for 2 at the 85% level, I believe. So because it's in the budget, I put it on the
Yeah,
screen.
yeah.
Or
I
on the
just want the taxpayers to know that taxpayers themselves are not paying for the full amount.
How often do we do a surplus sale since we have a 8-year run on our vehicles? Do we?
We surplus annually, and when let's say Ray got a new vehicle in his department. It's, I direct Ray to surplus as soon as possible, get it out of here because it gets it off our insurance. It's just timeliest to not have another maintenance issue take place.
You leave that at the department head to
Yes.
hold their own auction?
No,
Or-
the board of commissioners has to approve
Okay.
sale of surplus property, and then it's put on gov deals.
Govdeals.com annually.
So we don't replace everybody every year. I mean, we rotate them in and out.
8
Right.
years.
You've got a cycle.
8 years.
So you've got to
Next year we'll have a few more and
Yeah.
it just goes on.
I have a few questions about this that I was planning to ask as we get into the detail.
Uh-huh.
The first question I have is the first responder program. I'm told it's been put on hold for a year. So when is that going to be restarted?
That's the first I've heard of it being put on hold.
We received
It's
an
in the
email,
budget.
we received an email from John Skinner. They were talking about expanding the program, and he said it's going to be put on hold for a year. So,
I'm not-
you know anything about that?
I think that maybe the training aspect possibly, but we still receive annual training. That's not healed.
I'm not aware of any funding change. Otherwise, you hear about it in this budget workshop.
Find out details about it, because I would like to know, if it's going to be put on hold for a year according to this email while we continue to pay it.
I'll be glad to look into
I wonder if it's the expansion that's going to be put on hold, whether they continue as we are.
that change.
Yeah, the change will be put on hold next year.
The other question I have is, I thought, fire inspector had a Ford 150, but you just said you're replacing a F-250. So I went online last night trying to figure out what's different was between the two trucks. So wouldn't,
He's got an F-250 now.
so why wouldn't a 150 replace it now instead of a 250?
He's got an F-250 now. The reason they have an F-250 in that fleet is to pull the generator that we have for backup for the shelters, that it won't, the F-150s won't pull it. So the F-250 is what we have to have for that fleet. So, but he drives the F-250 currently.
Yeah,
What was the position you had? You said social service. What was the position? What was that?
They requested a supervisor for one of the programs they operate. And it was my understanding they had 9 people in that department with 1 supervisor, and the state recommended that they have 1 supervisor per 5 people they supervise. So I said, rather than add a position and increase the position classification plan to 10 total people with 2 supervisors supervising 5 people or whatnot, to just take one of the people in there, promote them to the supervisor, and then evenly split or distribute that staff amongst the 2 supervisors. It just seems more efficient. And it also keeps the staff down. That's right.
Speaking on number 6,
Yes,
in the 4 sheriff's department cars,
yes.
uh,
Annual,
if something happens in the next 30 to 60 days.
Yeah.
That has been discussed.
that would be 4 more.
So you would take those 4 and still get 4 more.
Yes.
Or why would you need 8? I'm just asking. I'm out.
Because you add no additional positions. And we don't have vehicles for.
Okay.
And also,
And for speaking on the positions on it, I'll go ahead and say, we've not had any position changes since 2010. In 2010, when John Lewis died, in line of duty, we got 2 positions. The following year, Snow Hill decided to start a police department. At that time, the county had whatever was going on with it financially, and so we lost 2 positions. So we're back at an even net.
Now, I was just more curious about the cars.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fine. I'm just going ahead and add it because I was gonna say it at some point.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
On top of that, our call volume has gone. At that time, back 2010, we were answering between 6,000 and 7,000 calls for service per year. We've gone up to around 12,000 now.
At least.
And we've doubled up just about in what our calls for service are with the same amount of help that's been going on.
I was just thinking if those 4 came into your possession, then maybe you could move that for the money for those maybe into hiring more people or salary. I just didn't know how that would work.
keep
That's
that
not
in
my-
mind. So you get transportation, you're gonna get more.
So
So,
I have 4 coming off the line too.
Yeah.
So you'll replace those, and then as far as having vehicles for the positions on that. Plus, things happen with me in threes usually, and especially like with vehicles, you'll have, this will happen, that'll happen, or whatever. We got to have folks that can ride. So,
I want to make an update on that. Sorry for interrupting. I interrupted you guys.
Yeah.
But, I can just. They're talking about trying to keep the road officers now, so the state will try and remain in Smithville. And they were trying the school resource officer to the county, but I think they more want to go, they want to encourage schools to go to the private security route. I mean, that's a town decision, but I'm just saying, if they go through what they were talking about at the last meeting, then most likely keep your own vehicle.
yeah, and that's completely up to.
That's terrible.
You don't have that.
Yeah, I was just, like I said, I didn't want to start that whole conversation. I just was curious about how to move money.
Looking at new positions. As we continue to grow as a county, we have these new neighborhoods, more people need more problems. Hopefully, we're not attracting people with problems, but you know, that does.
Chances are you might do.
It does create a big issue with that. And like I said, as far as call volume increases, you know, for crime rates, you know, they stagger. It goes up and down. You know, even in the years that we had COVID, crime rate went down throughout the country. The people were at home, they were doing, you know, different type of crime went on, but anyway, the call volume was still there.
And the manager likes an 8-year vehicle replacement plan, so let's try and maintain that.
Matt, you get any hit with the feds on electric vehicles?
Well, I don't think I'm gonna rely on everybody's safety with a golf cart.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on. Let's move on to number 8, our annual dues for participation in the GTP EDR are proposed to increase to 53,715. I believe that's up from the 32 range, and that's increased budgets. That's some of the costs that are going on there. I just wanted to make you aware that there is an increase for this partnership that we are part of. Okay.
Is it going any better than last year?
Well, there, in any partnership, once you figure one problem out, a new problem arises. So it's just it's a lot of communication. It's a lot of work. I do think that the region sees benefit as a whole, and hopefully Greene County's benefit continues to increase.
So what's all this cost going to, while the prices are so huge and increase? I mean, what are they spending the money on?
Okay, what's the budget on?
I mean, that's 53,000, that's a lot of money for 1 year increase, so.
Well, I'll just have you know that we are all based, our dues are based on a 9% of the total budget. Total budget went from 564,000 to 827,000 roughly. I want to say that Wayne County's went up 250,000. Lenore County's went up 110,000 and ours went up 20,000. And that's just based on the percentage that we, the population percentage of the region that we as Greene County represent. So
Based on per capita.
it is based on population. So we can talk about it in as much or little detail as you prefer, but that's just,
I had that highlighted and I asked you about that. I didn't understand why we, you know, it's kind of like being a member of something. You know, well, about like being a member of Coast Club. You know, when does it stop? I mean, when can they slow it down, or do they have the power to increase to another 20,000 next year?
so the 4 voting members for the budget are the 3 county managers and the executive director of the Global Transport. Based on the expenditures brought to us in a similar process to this, but I would be in a different role. The total budget that was agreed upon, divided out, increased us from 32 to 53 and change. And you want to know some of the benefits we got. Well, because we're part of this partnership, we were able to establish sewer perpetuitously to the north side of the Global Transport. We will benefit, you will benefit from that, your kids will benefit from that. Anybody who's in Greene County will benefit from that sale of service perpetuitously. Another thing we benefited would be, help me out.
Yeah, I think the partnership between us and Lenore County for my salary is a part of that as well.
Yeah.
Additionally, the vehicle I drive is part of the region. All the travel that I do is part of the region. So Yes, it is an increase of expense. Me and Kyle have had a lot of discussions on that, but I still think it's important for us to do this because we're still the lowest paying member because that's on per capita.
Which
Yeah.
means we're the highest benefitor. You know, it's,
So next year, if we get all these subdivisions that Matt just spoke of, this will increase.
if we reevaluate the population, it could go from 9 to 10%. I mean, it's not going to increase substantially. Just as we're experiencing an increase in subdivisions, so are they. It's everywhere. But great questions. Let's move on to utility rates. There are utility rate increases proposed due to we're being passed on increases. GUC has proposed an increase, and I didn't bring it with me. I can go grab it. Kathy, would you grab the folder by my desk? Rather than go through and just straight line increases through, I ask our engineers to assist me in providing an increase that will meet the new expense that we are going to take on appropriately to the customer base that we have. And you can see that residential's in water is an increase of 1.42%, commercial is 1.84%, institutional or prisons are just over 3%, and the bulk rate is 4.6%. Similarly, sewer, Kinston went up 15%. They haven't gone up in a while, but that is so a recommendation for increase in residential sewer is 3.6%, and the prisons is 7%. You'll see these increases in the fee schedules at the end of your budget ordinance. I've got it prepared, but you'll be presented with it Monday, June 2nd, okay? That's what you're going to approve, or whatever is being agreed upon in the budget. The document that you'll approve legally, that's it, for, to put that budget in motion for the following fiscal year, July 1. I can pass around their recommendations, or you can just believe me. I don't know.
What
Either
is
way.
that tied in to Kinston besides Credit Creek?
What's that?
What's exactly tied into Kinston besides Credit Creek?
The little transplant. And that was worked out with some great collaboration with the city of Kinston. Rhonda and her team, can't say enough good about them. We're very fortunate to be able to have that opportunity. And as that north side of that park grows, anything north of Stonington Creek, is that what it's called? Stonington Creek.
North of the old GTP office.
That's
the Learning
right.
Center.
I believe it's their pump station 20.
Yep.
Would be Greene County Sewer. So that's an opportunity we have perpetuously to benefit. Okay, we can move on if there are no questions. Oh, I actually put in those increases from GUC and Kinston. I didn't realize that. We move on to
Institutional is just prison
prisons.
only.
Yep.
And we get, state pays us for that, I guess.
Mhm.
This was a pet peeve of mine when I was with the town.
Yeah.
Mainly the only reason I ran for town commissioner, because back in the day, because they went crazy on their water rates. And I know right now we're only talking 0.42 on what I'm getting ready to say.
Yeah.
But they killed the commercial guy with the way they did it. Why is the commercial guy paying more than the residential guy? I'm just curious. I mean, like I said, it's only 0.42 today,
Yeah.
but you know, he's still using the same word the residential guy is. You know, he's going up on that sausage biscuit more now that you're charging him more money. I've just, why not move it over to, why not make the institutional 3.50 or something? And let the commercial guy have the same rate as the residential guy.
Like I said, I consult the engineers to make this as fair as possible. In my business mind, a commercial guy could probably write off that expense for utilities on his taxes,
Yeah.
whereas a resident could not, which is why there would be a slight increase perhaps. But I'd be happy to look into that for you if that's something you'd like.
Like I said, it's only 0.42 today. It's not that big of a deal, but
Yeah.
next year I wouldn't want to see it go from 2.5 to 4.5 or something to that range.
Understandable.
I mean, I never understood why I had to pay more for internet at the tennis club $52 more for internet than I do at my house, and I'm using the same internet
Well.
I know I can tax deduct it, but that's not really, it's the same internet, if you will, but.
Sure, I'd be glad to at least get some explanation on that. Can't speak for the internet company, but I can get explanation.
And I was using the internet, I wasn't picking on the internet.
No, no,
I
it's
was
a good
just,
example.
I was just using
Good
that
example.
cable TV guy too, or whatever, or,
Okay.
most everything.
Next is our utility system management fee. Our utility system management fee had not been increased or changed for 12 years. It had been set at $225 and just left there. As I was examining our revenues, I kind of dug into that one. Why isn't this one changing? Everything's going up. Why is this one staying constant? So I asked the engineers. We have a formula provided by the state, and that formula actually allows us, we could increase more than 350, but 350 was somewhere in the middle of what we were allowed to do, and I thought of it as reasonable. I believe the max we could do was like 425 or 450 off the top of my head, but I thought 350 could be a good number for a couple of years, and then we can reevaluate it at that point. And just know that I believe I explained it. The interfund transfer from the utility fund to the general fund reflects reimbursement for staffing, equipment, and facilities usage. Notice that we built this nice office for our water billing and collections department over here. And this could be reimbursement for some of those expenses and some ongoing expenses for software, et cetera, et cetera. Are there any questions or comments on that? Okay, we'll move on to solid waste fees. I am proposing a $5 increase on the availability and the user fees. We've been stepping this up through recent years, trying to get it to where we are at a point where we're breaking even in the utility department. I did talk to our neighbors in Pitt County, and they're increasing theirs. I believe Janice told me to $140. And my question is, well, the question would be, why do we think we can run a similar enterprise at a discount of what our neighbors can? Now, the user fee and the availability fee, yes, they have a higher population, but it should all be, equal. Why do we think we can run it at a discount? We can't. We're just not putting enough back. We're not putting enough away to cover our end costs that will come eventually. And increasing these current costs will help us in our current budgets and in the long term. Okay? You all right?
We got a record of how many people out of the county are bringing CD over here.
Not that I'm aware of. I can find that out if you'd like.
I see trucks and stuff that I don't see normally running in Green County with a trailer behind it, a tarp over it, bringing it to the landfill.
I'm glad they tarped it. But I'll say that I believe we have the same rate of disposal, $46 that Pitt County has. Same cost. We really can't go up on cost on that aspect. It's not in our benefit.
There's no way to police a in-county, out-of-county
Well,
situation.
you're going to get into code enforcement issues, and I think we've talked about that for some other things. For tarping, we talked about that actually.
It was mentioned again at transportation meeting the other day
Tarping,
about talking.
yep, tarping. I know Pitt County has a person, that is their job. When that landfill opens, that person goes and sits in not a police car, but a code enforcement car. They really do, and they watch people come in. If you don't have a tarp on there, you get $100 fine. That volume is, they are population-wise 10 times larger than us. They're about 200K. We're 20K. So they can justify that expense with their general fund tax revenue.
I saw one yesterday going down Highway 40. I told my wife, I said, he's going to a landfill. I had a while. He pulled it off. He didn't have no tarp or nuts, just flying, flipping, and flopping.
Wow. It would be great to do that. I just don't understand how we're going to fund that at this point.
There's something I would love to see. We could have some type of advertising at the gate when you come in, asking them to try to cover their trash when they come in. and set a date later on down the line, it's gonna be enforced or whatever. I mean,
I believe there is a sign that says all trash must be targeted.
I ain't saying.
I'll
Is
verify
there any
that.
way?
We need to find some way to try to fund a part-time enforcement person.
Is there any way?
Man's deputies.
Man don't have to help, man's got enough. Yeah, but we need to figure out a way that we can get a part-time or whatever enforcement person in here to handle some of this trash stuff. Cause I mean, Green County's getting mighty
It
nasty.
is.
That's coming eventually, I would think, but it's also, at these tours, the county writes everybody up for the trash dumps that we're speaking of. He might can set out the landfill half a day, 1 day a week.
What I was going to suggest, like, I'm sorry, but I can't hear you talk. Instead of having a dedicated person sit out in the landfill, is there any way we can have that person working in the booth to enforce that fine, and then use that dedicated person to ride around? Other places to enforce it, ordinance, instead of having him just sit out landfill all the time.
I can reach out to our neighbors in other counties our size and see how they're trying to enforce similar issues. I have no problem doing that.
Well, the only bad thing about it, where he said he went to a landfill, they wouldn't let you come off scale unless it's covered. So he went back and got a cotton sheet,
Yeah.
something like that, threw over top of it, and that satisfied, you know.
The only negative with that, if you sell somebody it's a $50 fine, if it's not covered, they don't see it till they get up there. They're gonna probably back up, drive back home, throw more trash in front of Donald Beamer's house.
Yeah.
Cause he's the one that keeps bringing up that transfer
That's
station
right.
meeting.
That's right.
And, then they'll get a tarp, you know, so he actually is going by that house twice with it not tarped. Rather than paying that $50 fine, he'll feel like it's better to come back the next day. So it's
They could potentially
it's
say.
darn if you do, darn if you don't on that situation.
The heck with you and go dump it in the woods somewhere too.
Uh.
So anyways, there's a lot of things we'll take a look at. We move on to number 12. In the revenue budget, an increase in sales tax forecast is given. This was my justification behind that sales tax revenue forecast increase, and it came from the fiscal research division. So I'm hoping they're right, and they usually are. They're pretty good at this. Are there any questions through the message before we jump into the spreadsheets? Okay, let's jump in. Page 1. Page 1 is our governing body, and that's salaries of commissioners and the professional services for audit. You can see that that cost is coming down, which is a miraculous thing. As our staff becomes more trained, the use of third-party contractors decreasing the cost of that service that's budgeted in this department. Thank your staff. Otherwise, not a lot changing there.
We have not been very active in that, or we're going to start being active this year with what
Wait, say it again?
NACO. Well, we haven't really been active.
Okay. Yeah, we're going to try and increase our activity. I've kind of been mentioning that on strategies we can use to do that without increasing the budget at all. That's what you've been hearing from me at these meetings recently. Okay? Any questions in governing body?
We will.
Okay.
Manufacturer Association on page 2. Are we going to continue supporting them?
Okay.
Or they have any fundraisers and membership dues or anything?
I didn't hear what you said, Derek. Who was it?
Manufacturer Association, no, they, all the manufacturers in the county pay a due, including the county. The county is a main contributor to that. The shoulder support is also includes workforce development. So the Manufacturer Association just sponsored the ACE Academy at GTP for all Greene County students. The schools did not have enough money to complete transportation from Greene County to the GTP. The Manufacturer Association, with the help of the county, sponsored all the bus and transportation for that. So that's where that line comes from.
There is a little extra in that nonprofit funding. I was hoping Jerry would tell me to give a little to that place in Wilson we go.
Diversify.
Diversify.
Diversified, yeah, right, yeah, I think we need to do that.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
We need to,
Diversified opportunity.
that's right. I couldn't make it last year. I had a conflict.
It's a wonderful,
It is.
wonderful organization. That budget has not changed all that much. Are there any questions? Oh, insurance did go up, I promise. But any questions through general government?
Good, man.
All right, as we move on to page 3 in the administration budget, you'll just see the increase in the salaries and benefits as described earlier. Beyond that, it is strikingly similar to what we have had before.
Data support is going up by double. What exactly is that?
Data support is going up due to instituting new software for cybersecurity. We've instituted new software called Threat Locker to all computers where staff cannot download any program without us knowing and checking out, make sure it's not a phishing issue or so forth. So that is the new program.
And that was a recommendation from the National Guard stuff that we did. And we are just trying to maintain benchmark with what they recommend to us. We've got a lot of valuable, important information. We do not need to be getting hacked.
Exactly.
And that isn't that we think staff are doing something bad. It's more or less if they click on an email and it downloads something accidentally,
Right.
it blocks
That
it.
can happen very easily.
Yes, it
And it
can.
also prevents USB drives from automatically installing things. So it's a good perimeter and we looked at a lot of different options and this is the best cost one. Because you can get real expensive real quick.
The lobbyist money is that, I noticed I hadn't been using.
Yep.
It's newly created.
Last, let me think, is it July or August?
Yeah.
The commissioners brought on Capital Strategies, Jim Perry, to help us
Is that
in
his
our,
company?
Huh?
Is that his company?
yes, Capital Strategies, to help us get our message to the folks in Raleigh. I think he's done a nice job. He keeps me very informed of what's going on. He informed me how it's time to go, so I informed Trey. We'll probably go up next week or the following week because I believe the House just gave their budget proposal back to the Senate. They are alarmingly different. So now's the time to get in there and make sure we stake our case for maybe some contribution or some need that we have that they can help us with.
I believe Jim got some health issues. I don't know if you've heard about it.
Yeah, I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about the budget.
Oh, okay. Okay, let you know.
What's miscellaneous? There's no, let's try to explain.
Wait, what?
Miscellaneous. What's our net budget?
It's 3,000. It's the odds and the ends that don't want having their own account description and throughout a year in a, $28 million general fund budget. If something is amiss or if something's, $80 here, $40 here, throughout a year, it can add up to $3,000, but it's not deserving of an account code. We throw it in miscellaneous expense.
There's one of those, like Chris. Gina Turner. Whatever.
Well, no, it was 3,000 last year. The actual came in, I believe there was an expense in there. Since this budget has been, this was from January 7/12. I asked if there is a large expenditure that be classified. That's too large to be miscellaneous. So, but thanks for pointing that out. Okay, any other questions in administration? As we move to taxes alarmingly similar to prior year. Stephanie and her crowd put together a nice tight budget. Please take a good review and please ask questions.
I'm gonna have two questions.
Please.
Part-time salaries. I'm looking at the description. It says 2 part-time salaries. And a 2 part-time position, it has a 1. So is it 1 or 2 part-time?
It's 2 part-time positions.
I just want to put it, one throwing me off.
Yeah, I'm not sure if.
Stephanie's on if you want.
I'm sure it's just a typo, but Stephanie, if you're on, what's the one about in that explanation?
Or more notes, it's just cut off on the screenshot that you got there.
shows negative,
Yeah,
but
it's,
the actual on foreclosure from your Excel sheet is pretty close to what they budget, so why is there a difference between?
but Derek, I didn't hear you. You gotta repeat
Oh,
yourself.
Steph, hold on there. Stephanie, still, go ahead again.
I was just saying that there are more notes in addition to the part that you see there, so part of it's cut off.
Sorry about that.
But it is just two part-time positions.
On the Excel sheet that is negative for actual. I mean, on the unit side, it's negative for actual from the foreclosure, but the actual on the Excel sheet, close to what you recommend. So what's the actual foreclosures?
So in the 24 actuals, something got credited back to the foreclosure, and that's what's going to make a negative revenue. Okay, or I'm sorry, negative expense. In foreclosures, we budget $5,000 annually, and I honestly think she wanted more than that, and I asked her to cut it back, just because we hadn't always spent that much. Isn't that right, Stephanie?
That's correct.
Thank you. Any other questions in tax? Hearing none, I'll move on to court. Their court is the same budget as in prior years, except an equipment rent line at the amount of 1105. We received new copiers, and that is their annual amortization payment towards copiers for the year. And if it's their department that's using the product, then we want to make sure we're charging it to the place that's using it.
For the court, there's a huge, it appears like there's a huge cut, and the actual was 7,000, and the recommendation is 500. So what's different there?
Say it again, Derek.
Under the court, contracted service, I'm guessing it's contract, I'm guessing contract service, it said the actual were close to 7,000, and recommendation for this year is like 500, so.
Yeah, in years past, we had done, remember when we drilled through the floor in the courtroom to make sure all the wires went away and make it look pretty? Do you remember in the past where we built that nice new desk according to what the clerk of court wanted? That actual cost needs to be charged to the department that is benefiting from the expense. We do not have in our forecast, in our planned expenditures, any of that work to be done this year. If it does, that's the line it's going to get charged to, and we'll have to do a budget amendment to increase it. Great question. Okay, with no more, we'll move on to elections. This was Miss Melissa Dixon's first budget. I know she worked with current staff who've been in that department before. She did a nice job. The only real difference was a capital outlay, and I believe that was some software, a software update at the amount of $16,415.
That's, sorry, that's for the printing of ballots for the next thing. For the next, we'll be able to print ballots here. That saves cost and also makes it easier for early voting as well. We
So
had an
the
issue
trial
with that.
run will be towns.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm pointing at you. You're not with a town. It'll be at the town's election this fall, and that will be the practice run for the next even year election, the larger election.
Question on revenue, money making, not spending,
Yes.
in the same department. There was discussion on trying to get the town to run the election on the same cycle,
The even years.
so they wouldn't have to pay the fee. Who sets that fee?
So the elections
Board of
office sets that
Election
fee, and
office.
then all it is, so the elections office keeps a tab on every receipt and everything, and then sends it to the town for payment. So all costs of part-time staff, all printing the ballots, all the ink, everything is kept in a line item and kept as a expense. So it's not just a set fee.
Well,
It's-
like a credit card company, now you go to the steakhouse, you buy
Yeah, there's no-
$50.
yeah, there's no,
3%.
like, there's no 3% off. It's whatever, you know,
Oh,
we
I was talking
show
about-
you the invoice.
I
we
was talking
split.
about, could we put a 10% surcharge on?
You could.
If it's been
Well,
costing us $6,800 a year to do it,
so
why can't
this
we
is the-
charge them 9,000?
This is the first year that,
Well, no, I mean, we name our fee, why can't we do it? I mean, it's totally ridiculous to totally ridiculous to even have it, but that's not the discussion here today. Can we make money off of it if it's gonna be,
I don't think
I mean-
by statute, and I had to double check, but I don't think by statute you can charge an additional fee. I think you have to charge whatever fee that you have expense.
Let's check on that though, because I like this.
But
idea.
I will advise, this is the very first year that the town of Walstenburg, the town of Hooker, and the Maury Sanitary Land District won't have an election.
well, that's,
They're moving
I
to
thought it
even.
was last year. I thought last year they had that big expense on the town because that was.
No, it'll come this year.
So it's
So
this
that
coming-
big expense for the town of Snow Hill is this year. They're going to cover all costs for early voting, for printing. I mean, their bill is going to go from 6,000 or 7,000 to probably 20 or 25,000.
I've got 17 budgeted.
It's going to be a big bill for them to pay for that election.
The budget.
They budgeted.
Board, so that's like double.
If they budget charter.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's ridiculous to have an $20,000 election, but that's their choice
Absolutely.
for 340 people to vote.
I know our current staff worked with them in trying to explain how they could have and realize the cost savings by joining the even year elections,
Mhm.
and they chose not to.
Their choice.
Yes, sir.
That's cool.
Any other questions in elections?
What about the board salaries doubling?
I gave what was requested.
What was the question, Derek?
So why are we doubling board salaries because they requested, are they paying the board members more, what?
I think they're trying to, or they are having more meetings. I also think they went from 3 members to 5.
Yeah.
So there is maybe more meetings and more people.
It's one because it's doubling.
Okay. I'll work with
check on that.
I'll work with Miss Melissa on maybe some explanations in the next year. I know I put that in the request I send to the department heads, and not everybody complies. But I'll work with her.
This is her first budget year,
She
so
is
it's not
doing
a,
very well. Let's move to our register budget, page 8. It is not alarmingly different from prior fiscal year. Please ask any and all questions that you may have.
To me, this is showing negative for equipment rental. But like I said, another case is, so what you have here.
So in her budget, equipment rental is the copier lease. So in an expenditure budget, if you spend more than 0 budgeted, it's going to be a negative. It's going to be negative. So there'll be a budget amendment to clean that up, or there's another line item adjustment that can take place to clean that up. And you'll notice in the in the proposed budget, you're going to see equipment rent to where it has money in it to pay for that lease. I don't want to get too into that lease agreement. It kind of upset me last year in June, but we'll deal with it. Are there other questions that I can answer? Okay, let's move on. We hit 11/4/20 with planning building inspections.
Just want to make a comment.
Yes,
Page 9 can be taken out because it's the very same information to page 2.
let's go to page 10. Page 9 didn't get pulled. Page 10, actually, I put the little planning placard in the bottom. I was trying to make it so that you would all see that, and I missed it. You're gonna have to forgive that humanity.
I do have a question on page 9.
Well, how about we do page 10?
It's the same page.
It stands for
What's that?
LUP at the bottom.
Land use plan.
It says 9,000 for new LUP. What's LUP?
Land use plan. So this is the line that's going to have land use plan update and the solar farm ordinance update. We're getting professional help to make sure that we're doing what's best for our citizens in the community.
I have no problem. I just know what LUP stands
Sure.
for.
I appreciate the question. Okay, nothing else. We'll move on to animal services. I will say this is a good budget. It's not strikingly different. I will compliment the commissioners. I know when I came, I used to tell them, Dr. Ivy Smith, when I came, the animal services budget was like $80,000. And we have done a lot of progression, a lot of improvements, a lot of development, a lot of staffing increases, vehicular, all sorts of increases. And now it's at 300,000, which is probably not, it's a good place, but I mean, this is a budget I'm very proud of. Please ask questions.
I have a similar question. What is GOECO?
It stands for GOECO, Goldsboro Office Equipment Company. That's who our lease with the copiers are. You're going to see a common number throughout that budget in that office rent or equipment rent line. And theirs might not be, theirs might be, there's his equipment rent. 1105 was the annual cost for those big copiers throughout the county. We pay it monthly, but I just gave you the annual cost. Any questions in there? Any questions? If you see an animal control officer, an animal services agent, please thank them for what they do.
Was there discussion on building a new animal shelter? Was
Man,
there?
I would love to.
Was-
Working on funding, finding a funding source for that. That is, that's down the road. Yeah, that's one of our two that really need some attention, really need addressed. That's left.
2 names I'll give you
Well, I appreciate
for
that.
private donation. Significant private donations, maybe.
That sounds lovely.
But,
Didn't you say one time we would take that money and put it aside?
Yeah, oh, yeah. So I had a conversation with an individual very recently who said, wow, we may like to contribute to a plan like that. And I said, if you did, 1, the county would write you a receipt for the contribution. And then 2, we would put it in an assigned fund balance for that cause. Yeah, we would restrict it.
I'll
That's
be one of
correct.
the same 2 people I'm talking about.
Well, I hope not. The more, the more the merrier, right? But that's a great department. Please thank those staff. They're wonderful. Thank all the staff. Let's move on to the sheriff's department. The sheriff was very kind. At one time, I needed a little help in reducing expenditure to meet the revenue estimates. And the sheriff stepped up and said, "Can I help, Kyle?" And I said, "Absolutely, sir." And he gave of some of his requested budget. And you'll notice some slight decreases in some places. But
What exactly is equipment rental for? It's going to use to.
so that's the cost for the copiers. Okay.
We
And
got fingerprint machines or several other items.
but I believe that budget number will cover all those expenses that he and I both mentioned.
It's amazing that the interpreter don't cost you more. I would have thought that'd have been when I saw that the other day, I was just
So we
like,
actually have some bilingual folks.
Yeah. I figured that when I saw only $200 requested.
Along with other agencies that have bilingual folks. Typically, what that was in there for back in the day when we still had communications, it was more of a communication asset whenever they were calling into dispatch, and dispatch actually has one now. We still reserve that just a little bit, but yeah.
I was getting ready to ask you, dispatch have a bilingual, but they do have one now.
No, dispatch, I don't know what they have. I'm just thinking about what we have.
Uh.
But a lot of times you had folks, the individuals that would call in on 911. Communications used to be under the sheriff's office.
Right, yeah.
And, yeah, but that's not something that we still reserve that just in case we did need it.
Skills too, right?
Only class ever, but
Okay. Any questions in sheriff? If not, we'll move on to jail. Same compliment to the sheriff in assisting in meeting the budget needs for the year. Any questions?
Who we got the meals contracted with? Same one,
with
Prison.
prison,
prison.
that's the best benefit we can have.
That's not gonna change.
That's not gonna change. Not to my knowledge, unless y'all think that.
Easy now. Okay.
We're other sheriffs are envious of what we have with that.
Okay, good deal.
It's a bet. Yeah. Okay. If there are no questions in jail, we'll move on to emergency management. I'll compliment Brock. He also, like the sheriff, was willing to give up some in his request to help get the number down to a balancing number. But what he requested, for the most part, is in there. We've got a great emergency management department.
What exactly is that safety going to?
Which number you will?
Safety, what exactly is that money going to?
That's safety officer and safety manuals. The emergency management department is in charge of the safety for the county, so Any incidents, they have to do safety trainings for all staff. They have to have a safety manual. So that's the line item for all that expense.
You know that thing, we get 3% discount on our workers' comp? That's because of the safety program that Brock administers. So make sure you thank him.
Capital overlay is the choice, right?
Any other questions in emergency management? We move on to EMS. This is a big department. Any questions?
I went, go back 1 second for, the fire association. How many members are still participating now? I've heard that 2 or 3 that dropped out. You know how many members?
No, I've not been.
All the two.
Should be 9 in there right now.
Okay.
We still fund that at the same level they do all the fire prevention, things like that, Nathan. So it's still a good association to be funding.
These dash cameras, you have to replace them every year, one time.
Which line are you on?
Page 16, top right thing.
Oh, but now you're there.
Oh, yeah. You said EMA.
Well, I thought, anyway, are we ready to go to EMS? The equipment.
Brock's on, he can probably explain dash cam better than I can.
Hey, Brock,
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
can you explain the dash cams in equipment in your EMS budget for me, bud?
Yes. So that is so we can enhance our driver safety, for our organization. You know, our staff, they drive emergency traffic, you know, quite a bit of times, and we just want to make sure that our staff are being as safe as they can be whenever they are in the vehicle. And, you know, plus the event that something happens, they're involved in a accident or something like that, we'll have that true feedback of, you know, who is at fault, you know, what happened, that sort of thing, so we can hopefully mitigate anything, before it happens, you know, again. Plus, it's a good deterrent for staff to know that if they do have, you know, dash cam on, that they are, you know, following the proper, you know, procedures and laws, that sort of thing. It's just a good deterrent and, helps us with our organization.
A good tool to maximize professionalism. I like it, Brock. Thank you.
Good deal.
Good thing to have, and I probably thought you probably already had it. I mean, I would have just thought they all were equipped with that now.
What exactly was this line? Depth, plan, something similar to with depth.
Wait. Where you at now? Let's go with account codes or account names.
That's the, Brock, you want to talk about that one?
Which one?
It's dead. 52.
Which one's that?
It's an EMS,
It's debt principal.
yes.
It's on the Stryker load right
Yep.
stretchers. We did a-
Yes, that is. Sure. So that is our, final payment for the lease of the stretchers that we have.
Thank you, Brock. Any other questions in EMS? Good budget, a lot of responsibilities in that budget. Brock and his crowd take good care of it. If no more questions in EMS, let's move on to communications. Take a look, ask questions.
Part-time salaries is increasing, we're adding a new dispatcher, I know, but what about, why is part-time salary increasing, we're adding more full-time?
So the full-time people that we have are budgeted, but some of the full-time people, and remember how we pay overtime here, straight overtime, remember? So we are just trying to delineate whether it's full-time 40-hour week or overtime over 40-hour week. And we have a lot of part-time people who cover those window shifts. Is that right, Brock?
That's correct.
Okay. No more questions in communications. We'll move on to public buildings. This is a very challenging budget, trying to identify which building costs are public versus departmental. So let's review that real quick. Standalone buildings go to the department, like the wellness center, that's recreation, okay? But things like the operations center, where it covers 3 facilities, that's a public building. Or the jail, that's a public building. So it's something that all staff and the manager work on to make sure that we are budgeting in the correct place. That's challenging. And then with all these different maintenance agreements for all the unique things in each of these different buildings, is important that we don't miss something. I know since this budget has been printed for your review, I have authorized Piedmont to add the animal shelter. Somehow in our ancillary budget, it was missed in HVAC. So I added it. It needs to be added. So it was done. And then let me see, I think I turned the wellness center from preventative maintenance to full maintenance because it's in its 8th year. After 8 years, commercial equipment, the risk or the liability that it is going to fail increases to a point where it's worth spending the extra money to be fully insured. Okay?
Yeah.
But anyways, I believe the budget did increase slightly, 640 from maybe 625 or something in the prior year. But like I just said, I think of that extra money, I think I just chewed up 6,000 of it. There is just a little bit of fluff in there for some variations in contracts that may come up.
So
Okay,
we contract with, Grand Island Kinston,
Debs.
yeah, for courthouse guards.
Yes, sir.
And there's just one, there's 2 there in court.
I think it's 1 all the time and then 2 on court days. Does that sound right, Matt?
They've got 2 on.
They've got 2 all the time now.
Okay,
And that is a cost, Buddy Bro, that keeps going up.
that's what I was thinking.
Well, and here's the thing about it, just like talking about part-time salary. If you've got just enough people to cover what is being done, these people are still taking off. That gap's got to be filled.
Right.
When these folks take off to do whatever, just like the courthouse staff, they got to go to the bathroom. They got to go eat. They got to do everything that folks, normal folks would do. We run under the assumption that people are going to come in and they're going to work, every single day and not take a day off, never be sick or never have any problems. And that's the reason why you got on that. And the same thing with part-time salary. Even though you may have to budget and whatever's going on with it, you've got people, like I said, they're going to take off. We got just enough of it. Same thing with me and my office. I'm sitting here and I'm running, as I'm sitting here running stuff, and you've got folks, we've got people that are out sick, they have injury, they, take a day off, they're entitled to vacation just like everybody else is. So, it's not like what we're putting in, we got this biker season we're putting in, we got to get it, as soon as we get done with that, then we can take it easy. This is a 365-day thing. But
Thank you, Sheriff. Any questions in public buildings? Okay, well, let's move on. We move into economic development. I'm really
Miss Barr,
Oh, did I?
It's not in the spreadsheets, but it's in the munis report. It's page 79.
Okay, so forestry is really just a request from forestry to pay an allotment of money. And I mean, you can read to me if you want. What they, off the top of my head, I want to say that it's like a 2/3, 1/3.
A 30% increase, isn't it?
It's 65% state and their budget is 200,000 and 35% county, which is 107,000 for 747, which should reflect what you see. Isn't that correct, Eric? Okay. Anyways, forestry is generally just.
It's 79. It's not in the spreadsheets. It's in the munis reports in the back.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's just one line.
One line thing.
so
They
they do a good job.
do a nice job. Sorry about that, and thanks. Okay, well, let's move on to economic development. Another department I'm really proud of the support from the commissioners in funding. Was not something that was a top priority maybe 10 years ago, but is really, really a priority now.
And, is Kinston changing their committee 100 or something like that?
Yes, sir. Yep. So the Committee 100 and the county partnered together to form the Development Alliance, very similar to what we have here with the Greene County Economic Development Partnership. We were finally able to get the committee to do that. We're hoping one day our Committee 100 us can work together to do the same thing.
Can you explain the salary and insurance? It's all over the place. We too short.
Yeah, we had some issues with last year was the first year that we done the Lenore County with splitting the salaries and so forth. So we had some issues with the budget lines on that. We had to get it straight, how to expense it and how to get it right. For me, since I get a Greene County check, but Lenore County, I'm leased to Lenore County 50% of the time and how that worked. So that's why the expense line is crazy for that. So we should be getting a little firmer numbers on that this
So
year.
now look at me too short. What exactly your salary going to be? 98, 300.
Yep, that's right.
What about this insurance thing? It's back and forth. When you're higher, next year lower.
Insurance countywide should be at 8740.
It's part of your salary. It's part of that salary line. So it's just a percentage.
I just wondered because it goes back and forth between years and then most of it's all, most of the other employee insurance consistent. I just wondering what the clarification.
No, it's just last year was the first full year of salary line for us for Lenore County. So we were trying to get that all straight. It was a little confusing from our team and their team to get it all worked out. So that's why it's a weird inconsistency, but we should have it worked out and it should be consistent from now on.
Well, that's what I'd ask, because of line one, Trey. I'd ask Kyle about column one, I'm sorry. 20, where you had 24 budget, 7436 for insurance, then it jumped to 8700. That was what, wild question, did that mean 24-25 budget or
That's right.
what it meant?
Mm-hmm.
That got my attention more than anything else. And then you turn over to page 79 and you see the insurance is the same as it was last year.
Yeah, I did want to say, I just thought of something. I do budget 8,700 per employee per year for insurance. And then the extra $36-38 is for the life policy we have on all staff.
What exactly is North Carolina? How much they pay for your salary?
So they pay approximately 55% of my salary.
55.
Yeah.
It's
55%, not
Yeah.
55,000.
No, yeah, 55%. So the counties have the county split my salary 50%, 50%, but Lenore County, since it's larger, pays a stipend, an additional cost of $600 a month.
So we cover all your benefits and insurance.
Well, the Lenore County, that's all cut 50-50.
50-50.
Yeah. So the benefits, insurance, all that, the Greene County bills Lenore County for that expense.
You get paid for the public transport crew?
No. So that's the expense. My work for the Global Transport is part of our contract with the Global Transport Economic Development. So I don't have a budget in Lenore County. Like my budget is this budget here for both counties.
We work well with Lenore County. We're doing the opioid program with Lenore County, and they're the ones holding the budget, and all we're doing is paying into it. Economic development, it's reversal, and they're paying us, and we pay the staff member. For the economic development region, that goes through the GTP at this point. But anyways, it all speaks to the partnership we have with our neighbors.
Incentive payments, Trey, how many of those? Is this a one-time deal?
Incentive payments or incentive grants are dependent on the agreement from the company with the county.
Mhm.
That incentive line 06 at the very bottom, that counts for John Harrell green grain
Right.
cattle.
Okay.
And that you'll start seeing that for all of them, they'll throw into that incentive line, makes it a lot easier. Bees, Precision Agency, and Heritage have their own as well. Heritage is done. Theirs is complete outside of some minor things that we'll have to request, but, their grant's closed out.
Okay. Any questions in economic development? None? Let's move on. So we hit extension and the farmer's market. Jessica does a nice job running these two departments for us. Please look through. Let me know any questions you have.
Annual appropriation for salary increase. What is that? And that's say supplemental salary should, what did they find that was?
So what's going on there is they are state employees housed by Greene County. So the state pays our extension staff. They send us a bill monthly, actually, but obviously this is annualized of what the current salaries and benefits for their staff are in that facility performing that function. And we pay for that. We pay them money and then they pay their staff. It's a pass through.
You get the opportunity. I want to see that grass cut on that roadway in front of that extension building.
I'll let DOT
Let
know.
somebody know. I mean, it grass don't look good, Kyle. We got a public building right there and it's high when you turn in. You know,
Trey, will you text Jay?
Yeah.
I'm not gonna text Mary back. Got it. Okay, if there are no questions, we'll move on to soil water. Soil water doesn't change a whole lot. Some of those larger numbers down in the bottom. Rodney has been very active in applying for funds from Commerce to snag the creek. He has not received any to this point to be included in this proposed budget. I imagine he has an effort in taking place, and hopefully we'll be able to snag some more creek. Jerry, you know more about that.
So until the budget is passed in North Carolina, we don't know that.
Right.
As soon as that gets done, we
Rodney's
And
very
it's-
active.
got everything in place.
in
and
applying.
I'm sure you got 300,000 in 23
Yeah,
to do that.
yeah.
And
Every year, I'm telling you, Rodney is very active. He's a real asset to our creek, keeping it cleaned up. I'll commend you guys. That's another one I'll commend you on. You have really put forth a lot of effort in cleaning that creek up since Matthew. I mean, I want to say every other year, and past few years, every year, we've been doing a portion of trying to keep that thing cleaned up. So
It's gonna take a while. Then you start right back over.
it's
why does it go up and down like that? 300 one year, 100 one year, 162 one year? Is it
So
called
these are
state?
grants from the state.
Grants from the states.
And it just depends on the size of the grant that we are granted. And
Got nothing to do with the linear miles of creek that we have or nothing like that, like the population thing earlier.
47, 8 miles of continue.
We set the mileage that we do based on the grant that we get.
So much a
Yeah.
foot.
if we get
Can't
X
go
dollars,
there.
That's pretty much.
we've been using Grio. Piggyback that. They are the low cost responsible bidder. And based on their rate, we can do so many linear feet with the amount of funds we receive.
And do we, I remember years ago, y'all remember the name, some of you will, Paul Skillithorne. Got a grant to do snag the creek for snow, through Snow Hill.
Yeah.
But it was only for the Snow Hill distance, if I'm not mistaken. I didn't,
No,
so Snow
Rodney,
Hill could get a grant as well. In the same,
Yes.
I mean, and we could, all the towns probably could get one. You probably could get the whole thing snagged is what I'm saying, if you,
no, there's not that much.
kind of, okay.
But Rodney's very active, props to Rodney.
Yeah.
And he does stay very active and we go as much as we can. And
Last big one we got, it started up at Shepherd's Ferry, it went down to Snow Hill. And then, there was some more money, counties that did not use all their money, so that got put in another pot and we reapplied and got some of that, took off of Snow
Yeah,
Hill.
Rodney's doing good. We don't need to get Skillithorne back involved.
No, hell no.
and just so you know, the state has to look at the work and approve it before they'll release payment authorization for us to pay them and them to reimburse us. So, but anyways, that's soil water. Any other questions? Okay, we moved to our veterans. Not included in this budget. I just want to give Ray some props. He applied for a grant, a veterans grant, and received it. I believe it's $18,000. And if you look at the size of his budget, that is it's going to be able to perform a big impact. It can't be used on anything that's budgeted. So it's going to be used on other things. So we are going to get very creative and use up those funds that he has applied for.
Other things like so-and-so fun day, or, I mean, when you say other things other than budget, what example?
New laptops.
Okay, some of it's not in the original. Okay.
Yeah.
How back there on page 22, it's sort of word.
Yeah.
If we take the money out for the big,
No, BMAP is in general government.
okay. I thought I saw it while ago, but I didn't see
Yeah.
it right here. Okay, we're good.
I'm looking at their travel line and
Gary, it's 11, 4, 12, 5, 3, 4, 200, 12,000.
I'm looking at their travel line for veterans. 24, 25 actually was zero. And then Munis says 477. But we recommended them $1,000 to do that. Have a travel budget or what?
So Ray goes to a lot of different conferences. Their actual expense in 23, 24 was 477. I rounded up to 500. Their actual expense in 24, 25 at the time this was published had been zero, but I know Ray has gone to a conference since then. This was printed January or with January financials in February, okay? So he has gone to a conference since then, and that's for hotels, that's for traveling, that type of thing. Let's make sure that the people we're sending are comfortable, are where they need to be so that they can attain and retain the information that they're going to these conferences for.
Derek, column 2 really confused me. Like I think it may have some of the others.
It did.
And because I was thinking like, man, he's terrible and he's missed a lot of budgets here. So that's a good example. Like Ray's been to a conference last month, so now that number will change.
That's
If you
right.
print it today, it might be 575 on that line.
Yeah.
So
The Munis reports on page 83 show,
Well, I was trying to think.
You actually know the number, Trey, 83?
yeah, it's page 83. It's and the Munis report was printed on May 8th, so that's as of May 8th. That's the actual line for it. That's
Well, perfect. Any other questions in veterans? Okay, so let's move on. So we go to recreation. We've had some transition in that department. I know you know. We've gone out for our full-time director. I think on the advertisement, we put first review after 2 weeks, second review after 3. I believe this is a good starting point budget. Yes, sir.
who did this budget? Since it was done in February.
This budget was given to me by a couple different people,
Okay.
and then I went through and I put what I think this budget needs.
So it wasn't done by
Kyle.
past personal.
Kyle.
Okay. I just clarified.
Now,
I
the
didn't think about it.
explanation-
Did you think about it?
I didn't work with the explanations. I put in a trend budget based on what I think this budget needs for the proposed year. And when we get a new director, I would like that director to tell me how this money needs to increase, decrease, move around to meet the needs of that.
Phone restoration bonus for some assuming it's cutting grass. It said the actual was $48.88, but we're budgeting 9,800. I think at 9,800 more in line. So why does the actual say $48.88?
So it says in 23, it was 4,887. That's the lease on one Kubota mower. If you recall, in last year's budget, we changed water, sewer, utilities from 2 mowers and recreation 1 to recreation 2 mowers, utilities 1. So that 9,800 is for 2 mowers that are leased by recreation to keep those fields playable and sharp for our citizens.
I just wondered why one was like $50 and now it's $10,000.
Great question.
it's he's talking about the actuals on page 85. Kyle. It's at
Oh.
488. I assumed the invoice for that hasn't come in.
It might not have,
Who's the least safe, bro?
but
About, out of
goes pro.
GoPro, okay.
Okay, any other questions? All right, we'll move on. This is where it gets fun. You guys want to take a 5 to 10 minute break, use the restroom? 5 minute break. So we're going to be on page 25. Let's take a 5 minute break, use the restroom, refill your coffees, and we'll reconvene with DSS. You're good.
Bobby is.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so let's pick back up where we had left off, and that is with our DSS budget. I was very proud, very happy with the DSS director. She brought a director request that was less than it had been in the past. And when we calculated in staffing probabilities, it looked like a budget that was less than in the past. It was then reduced a little bit by some changes in our phone and copier system payments. We talked about it. She was in agreement with. It's my understanding that everybody is okay with this budget. And that's why it's being presented to you.
What's going on with this but it's all over the place. Actually, it's $38,210, and now it's been reduced to $10,000. But
Okay.
actually on the sales sheet, or what's it on
I can understand.
Which line?
the supply is, the actual was $38,210, it's been reduced to $10,000.
Okay, now look, that supplies is for 23-24. That's 2 fiscal years ago when we're talking about a 25-26 budget. So in 24-25, it's $6,000.
In the munis report, it's on page 86.
So
It's
how did they
38.
reduce supplies so much and
They stopped buying stuff. Oh, and supplies in the past was buying their ink cartridges, their toners, their printer repair stuff. When we switched over to GoEco, GoEco takes care of everything. We buy one toner, fits every machine, one printer cartridge, fits every machine. So the need to carry inventory is for one type of machine, not for a plethora or 35 or 40 different machines. It's our attempt at creating an efficiency that can be passed through the budget.
Right, it saves us money.
I can also say something about that since that is my section. The past couple years since I've been here, we have made a concerted effort to, I've made a concerted effort to weed out stuff we don't have to have. And like you said, we no longer have to buy toners, cartridges, things like that. But also we have been through the last 2 years and replaced all our furniture that's falling apart, anything that's not up to speed, all that. So we have been able to now, after this year, because we've spent quite a bit in the last, we have used our budget this year to replace furniture and everything that's not in good shape. But going forward, because we are at a good point now, going forward, we won't need as much. If you want to give us some more, we're gonna, I'm
So
gonna use it for you, but.
something you may not hear that I tell all the department heads, if you need something, let's talk about it, let's ask.
Right.
We want to make sure you have the resources to perform your departmental functions. But what I'm hearing from you is your needs are being met. So
Yes.
that is being reflected in your proposed budget for the next year, not needing to be as much.
Our
So
needs
that's how
something
this works.
Are surprises that we go to you guys with immediately.
Yep.
It's not something that, it's something that's not on here. It's because it's gonna be a surprise and you will be as surprised as we are.
What contract service might be cutting out since you cut that request? I mean, from this year's budget was about 30% more than what you are asking for this year. Is there something cut out?
For contracted
Uh,
services.
you had 23.7 for this year and you're only asking for 16. I didn't know if there was a certain one that you cut out.
Part of that does fall under this time.
The same things?
So
Okay.
the copiers at one time were under contractor services. When we went with the new system,
That
That
fell
went
under the
under-
same stuff, okay?
yeah, it went to equipment rent. So that line item increased substantially, but you can see I decreased it once I actually plugged in those numbers. It was a guesstimate on their end and I tried to true it up. So some movement for the same stuff in different places. They've got what they need and the money to pay for it, just a different way of accounting for it.
so what's going on with the computer line?
Okay, where you at?
Computer services,
400.
12,000 bucks?
It's showing 21,000 and got 12.
Okay, Derek,
That was
you were looking at 23, 24.
He's looking at action. He's looking at news report.
But we don't have 24 actually, you have 23.
Okay, so you're looking at the Munis report then?
86, page 86.
Okay. Man. Okay, so computer.
5.74 2/3 of the way
The
down.
24 actual is at 21,374. I don't know what they spent in the 23-24 year, but in the 24-25 original and revised budget, I don't see.
They have been purchasing new computers for new staff, and we've been working through that.
New laptops, and in 23-24, that's the year we had to replace the server.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, the server.
So, but
That's right. What about the motor vehicle maintenance repair? It's, showing 12,000 something. And now it's $1,000.
If you recall, they had a vehicle that had the,
they had a wreck.
It was in a wreck.
It was in a
and it
wreck.
had repairs, and so we're not having to allocate for that. If we have an accident, that's something obviously will come to.
that's an
you.
unexpected, but
And, yeah,
didn't you have the catalytic converter cut too?
oh,
Yeah.
that happened about the time it needed to be replaced anyway, and so that was under our capital outlay.
Yeah.
So we were able to
That's,
replace that one anyhow.
it's
So
an unexpected anyways. I mean, there are things that come up that we need to address, and that's what happens.
Title assets and LIEP. They're both showing negatives in some corners, and
Okay.
I'm not sure which one, especially on file.
Okay, so which one are you talking about?
Title assets and LIEP.
Oh, so that goes into their state funding and their state programs? I don't touch those. Those state programs have an offsetting revenue that matches it. Okay? I don't touch state programs. I touch county money.
This budget's getting bored because we're having to go back to 23 to see what our expenses are. And so we'll be full.
Yeah.
I think the Title 20 was, for it being in the negative, is that we proceeding and the state does reimburse us. So we probably would have gotten some from the state, an allocation from the state for that. So that would be why it's in the negative, because we had a revenue on it as opposed to an expense.
Any other questions in the ESS?
So are you happy with this budget? Oh,
Yeah, this budget's great.
I mean, the social services and health is complicated for me.
Yeah, no, we're good. We've been,
So,
we don't have any tremendous harm with this.
yeah, the
It's what-
small decreases requested in DSS were agreed upon with the director, and it had mostly to do with the copiers coming from a different expense line item, the reduction in supplies needed for the copiers and the printers and all that jazz, so that they have the equipment they need for the upcoming fiscal year to the best of our knowledge. Any other questions?
You accomplished what we had down there. We refurbished it.
We have not to this point.
Okay. That's down the road.
I'd be happy to make that a little project next year if you'd like me to.
We got the funds. We try to go ahead and take care of it.
Yes. Okay.
One more question. What is, I have two more questions. The first question, what STFCA, what is that?
Page 89.
STFCH, what is that?
State Foster Home Service.
What's TAN F Foster?
TANF foster care, that's temporary aid for needy families, and that is funding for foster children. It's state funded, it's federal funded. TANF, I believe, is federal funded. That's federal line and state lines. Those are numbers given to us, and
You'll
it's
see
an
that,
email that comes. It comes the same email. This is what we're told to allocate for.
and you'll see an offsetting revenue for the expenditure.
I don't, what's that STFCS? I don't even know what it's doing for.
Yeah, it's,
Great question.
it blocks about initials.
Any other DSS questions?
Hold on.
Okay, so we move into public health,
What page is that?
27.
Okay, good.
So 20, thanks, Dan. In public health, there were no adjustments or cuts. What Joy presented was put in, was given.
I want to say, I want to make a off topic comment. I appreciate all the description, but man, it makes his lives all over the place.
Well, I'll tell you, I appreciate the descriptions from the department head, so please adjust as needed. But we've got a good department down there. It's a big department.
It is.
It is cool.
They do a lot of things, help the community in many ways, and I really do appreciate the description. They do a nice job in that.
That's the last page.
It's crazy.
49 is the last.
I know I haven't given you nearly enough time if this is your first view at this thing, but are there any questions in public health?
They do a good job. Man.
They do a nice job.
No problem.
What is, Scott and Worth, what are they underneath? What is their,
Their environmental health,
oh, it's not public, okay.
Well,
I thought,
it's part of public health, but they're environmental health type workers.
I mean, I didn't know what line, I would have thought that had been under contract services, because we contracted, you know.
It's always on.
Joy, are you on?
Yes, sir, I'm here. There is
just
a program, yes, there's a program for environmental health. It's a separate budget under the health department. And you'll see, Mr. Worth, Scott, and Kevin, we contract, currently with Worth with the Alliance. It's under contracted services, and Scott and Worth are actually still working at Wayne County Health Department, and we contract with them on an individual basis. I will tell you, both of those individuals are due to retire from Wayne County in December, and they're going to be coming over to us. We're going to contract through the Alliance for Scott and Kevin starting in January of 2026, but it will remain under contracted services.
49 is the last page. Thank you, Joy. Did
We
that
do
answer
have a
your question?
person, yeah, you will see some salary and fringe in environmental health, and that's for Viridiana, because she's the program office assistant for environmental health program. So she is paid out of salaries and fringes in the environmental health budget because she is a full-time employee. But the other three guys are contracted services.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Public health administration. We just talked about social services supplies with diesel. And again, I don't have options for 2024. But why are your supplies increasing while everybody else is decreasing?
What page you on there?
What's the actual?
I didn't understand what you said at all.
What page you on there?
Public health administration expense.
What page?
What's the
What
number?
page?
Page, the supplies that are going up, everybody else.
Page number. Page 90.
Joy, did you hear that?
I'm sorry.
Okay, so what's the question?
So why are their supplies going up and everybody else is going down? I mean, what's their actual for 24? So we haven't got back to 23.
Joy, on public health administration expenses, Commissioner Burris wants to know why the supplies are going up for that budget line.
So office computers, medical supplies.
517,100.
She explains it. that
Medical
office-
supplies aren't cheap.
Yeah, I'm going to read what you wrote, Joy. I think it's very thorough. Office, computer, and medical supplies, vaccines, professional memberships, malpractice insurance coverage, recruitment ads, human service planner supplies for clinics and community programs, pre-employment drug and background screening costs, portion of public health nurses and advanced practice providers, professional liability insurance, CPS technician recertification costs, $10,000 to cover necessary upgrades to replace hardware or software inventory, HIPAA compliant bi-monthly shredding contract, OSHA compliant medical waste contract.
What about this board pay line? Or did they get an increase or they got new members or what? Well, you might.
No, board paid remained the same. The chairperson makes $35 a meeting and regular members get paid $30 a meeting. That did not increase. That has stayed
So
the same.
the only thing on board pay that changes is if they do not attend, they are not paid. And
Exactly.
if you look at their attendance records, if the manager is in a tight, he can probably move $1,000 or two out of there, in or out, 1,500, whatever. This year, I wasn't in that much of a tight, and what Joy budgeted is probably the max that it could cost, and it's in that line item.
Yes, we actually budget what they have 6 meetings a year. We actually do put in one extra meeting in case we have to have a special call meeting, but we never go over in that line item. And we do put in a little bit of money if there is a conference that a Board of Health member needs to go to. We have that budget set up. But I'll tell you that money is usually always not spent because Board of Health members will typically go on their own without asking for reimbursement.
Yeah. Thank you, Joy.
Uh-huh.
Public health.
I will add that we did decrease our ask for local appropriations by about $27,000 from last year to this year. So we did try to always err on the side of caution, and so we actually did. Our budget is $27,000 less in local appropriations general budget fund compared
The prior year.
so.
And we appreciate that. Thank you for keeping us in mind.
Joy, Commissioner Burris has got one.
Public
Okay.
health tuberculosis. I'm assuming somebody got hired over here for, between 23 and 24, and now somebody must have got hired there. Is that right, correct?
Somebody got what? I'm sorry, I can't
He's
understand.
looking at tuberculosis. The original budget for 2025 is $33,167. The actual for the Munis report on page 91 is $4,600. So he's
That's
got a question on that.
Okay, so this past current year, we were about 1 year without a designated communicable disease nurse, and TB falls under that communicable disease position. And we had a nurse that stepped up and filled in that position, and then the family nurse practitioner stepped up and filled in that position. We just actually have hired in November of this past year, we actually hired a communicable disease nurse. She came from Pitt County. She retired. She's got 30 years of experience. She is actually a permanent part-time position with us. Her name is Renee. She started in November. So she works 3 days a week. And so her salary is not as high as if we, had a 40-hour week position. But TB falls under communicable disease within the health department. So that's where you're going to see, again, I always err on the side of caution and budget, for a position. But that is why we had that's why we had not a lot of salary spent last year, because we had nurses filling in for that position instead of having a full-time position.
Thank you, Joy.
Mhm.
Any other questions in public health? I know it's a big budget, and I know they do a lot of great work. Complicated. Now's the time if you have it. Hearing none. Let's move on to page 49, page 50. And we have now entered the senior center budget. Ms. Sharon does a spectacular job in this department. I know she, like many others, are focusing very keenly on federal budgets because a lot of the programs are funded federally in this department. But she's presented a budget, I think, that's going to meet the needs of that department for the upcoming fiscal year. I don't believe changes were made to it beyond the request. Please look through in as much little detail as you want. Let's talk about it. Ask any questions you need.
Just a positive comment. Senior Citizen Center of Excellence for years.
Yeah.
It's a nicely run ship over there.
I think Sharon does a pretty good job in descriptions too, so.
She does do a nice job with the descriptions. Yes, thank you. All right, well, that concludes the general fund. That's the big boy, all right? So I think we're making good time, but let's jump right in to water sewer. Fund 61, page 54. Okay. David puts in some great descriptions here, tried to make them readable for you all, but please ask questions. Be happy to answer them.
They full of staff. They full of staff.
In water, yes.
We got a succession plan.
Yes, yes, we do. We actually do. Don't jinx us. Hopefully. he
Yeah,
stays
I'm not,
correct.
not Jackson on water, very important.
So he is full of that.
Yeah, and water.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not hearing questions out of water. It's not remarkably different. Recall that there is a small increase in water rates to offset an increase passed on from GUC, okay? So,
That's gonna continue. See that stopping.
yeah. Okay, so public utilities, I'll give you just even another minute. Take a look.
What they do.
It ends at 56.
Equipment ones, whatever, nothing.
David added a truck. I asked, I said, what else do you need? But you guys have been very good about providing the different things that he needs. Excavators, dump trucks, lowboy trailers. We're all in good shape on that. And I think last year even included like an F-650 with a
Yeah.
flat back type vehicle.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's,
Someone mentioned something to me the other day, at the club the other day about the drop-off sites. What are they called?
Convenience.
Convenient sites. Is it,
do we want to move into landfill? That's
okay,
next.
well,
If we're done with the utility budget, let's move to landfill. Landfill is page 57. All right, let's have that
Yeah.
question.
well, no, I'm getting, let me find it real quick.
Yes, sir.
You guys under convenience. So it's one of them things you don't even think about. Well, I'm sorry, I apologize. I mean, I don't even think about that as
No, I understand.
till somebody asks me something.
That would be contract services, right?
That's what you're listing that as? Contract services under that?
And we're talking about. the
Convenience sites.
Okay. Let's see. No.
52, 7,500.
No.
And then you got 52, 7,500 again at 300,000.
The contracted services, 527,500, 328,000 is to pay the site attendants and GFL waste hauling contract. There's an increase in GFL fees at 5.2%. So it's going to cost us more, which is another reason why that increase that I proposed went in, as well as trying to put a little more back for that long-term.
So we have the sites that we contract out to
We have 6. That's correct.
Benny Heath. He goes there
Yeah.
and does what he wants to do.
Yeah.
And then we pay for GFL to come haul it away.
Yeah.
But we don't have to pay ourselves a dumping fee, do we?
No.
Okay, well, I didn't mean that funny. I'm just
No.
trying to learn
Yes, sir.
about that. We still close it on one day a week, Wednesdays or something like that.
Yep.
That's still
We
the,
set out. an
that
annual-
was what brought the conversation up the other day, yesterday, because they went Wednesday and won't open. So
We set out an annual schedule for the waste, for the convenience sites
Right.
annually when we do our annual holiday schedules. Their holiday schedule is just slightly different than ours, and to make the community as aware as possible to, I don't know, be as transparent as we can, we put theirs out too. We spell it out as, plainly and easily to be interpreted as
do
possible.
we pay rent for the dumpsters that GFL hauls off for us? Or does the guy that's contracting the site do it?
If there is a rent paid to GFL, it would be at our expense, not the contractors. I want to say that we do so much volume that we are not charged.
Well, you mean GFL is just charging you for their time and their dumping?
For the
Because of the volume.
Okay.
Yeah.
We do own a couple. I do know that. When we've got one down here at the health department. We've got one that the landfill fellas will bring down here when we need to empty one. So GFL comes, picks it up. We put ours.
Their containers are owned by GFO.
Yes, their containers are theirs. We do own a couple. While they're taking theirs to dump from this location, we'll put ours in that location so that, we can continue the service. It takes a day or two of time.
I saw yesterday on Highway 40, I told you I saw the guy come by, that talk over his stuff. From a wife where he did, now, well, he pulled off to the right, but right there where he pulled off was the humongous dumpster. I reckon for people to dump house trash in or something like that, they have to keep it throwing out on the road. I don't know, that's something we might want to look at down the road, having one at the landfill.
For household trash, we do have a dumpster that people can throw household trash in.
Correct.
At those convenience sites.
Right.
We've got
Talking about
one.
construction.
And the convenience sites has one too, don't
The house
The
trash.
convenience sites, I don't believe have a household
For
trash.
those way.
Yeah.
When you
Do
go
they?
in.
Well, I understand
Yeah,
that.
they do.
He's talking about two different things.
Oh,
I'm talking about two different things.
Yeah.
You close the gate at 4:30
yeah.
on holidays or whatever. What I'm talking about, somebody, they just go and throw crap outside the road
After hours.
after hours. We could get something where people could throw it or carry it during, after hours. instead of
Outside
throwing
the
it
gate.
outside the road.
Okay. I'll make note.
Well, it's check into that.
Shingleton Road is bad about that.
There's
Just
a
gate
lot
be
of, a
closed.
lot of roads bad. Steve.
Shingleton Road.
And that would be at the big landfill.
Well, yeah, to start off with that, we can,
Because the convenience sites don't close at 6 o'clock.
right, they close at 6. No, they close.
they? Convenience sites are under subcontract, but
That's
we
right.
named the hours, we named
Yeah, right.
we dictate everything about it.
That's right.
The schedule.
Most people that work there are retired.
Yeah. I hadn't been on it way before COVID. I mean,
Yeah, most of them are
I
retired.
just go straight to the landfill.
Same.
It's easier for me.
Talk to staff.
I did have one question about convenience sites. One concern that we repeatedly hear about is the quality of the site itself, the land, the driveways, the pad, that sort of thing. Where do we stand on trying to correct some of those potholes and situations?
So I tried to squeeze in paving the main, like the main path through one singular convenience site. I was gonna try and put like a 6-year plan in place to get 6 paved. And the cost couldn't be funded
Cost prohibitive.
at this point.
Yeah.
It is not something that I'm gonna give up on. David actually just spoke to me, I believe, it might have been last week. He spoke to me about how Kyle, make sure everyone knows that, we're gonna get out there and spread some rock back out. We've had a lot of rain. It was just after all that rain, and I understand. And he was gonna get back and spread that all out nice. I think the long-term solution is asphalt.
Which one is that the most problem with? Whatever
Probably
brand
around town.
have that. I know I ride by some
Well,
of
the-
them, they
probably
look
all-
just as neat and clean. I mean, the rock, everything's fine.
So thank David and his crowd.
Yeah.
They're doing as best they can. I think the long-term solution is asphalt. It's just, it didn't make the budget this year.
And one thing else, we need to start looking at replacing, and I know it's a big expense, but we do need to start replacing some of these buildings at these convenience sites.
I think we worked on one last year. I'll make note of that.
I think you got one.
That's probably cheaper on the every 6-year cycle than asphalt. Based on what, based on my experience. Past legal days.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
He's got one building at one site
Right here.
scheduled for this next budget
work.
year.
Well, since they're closed every Wednesday, now that I've learned that,
Yeah.
yesterday. I mean, would it, you can go buy a $700-800 angle iron land leveler, put it behind a small Mass Ferguson truck and just go drag them once a month on the day off. I mean, and he might be doing that. I don't know. I mean, that's, you could easily do that in a half a day with one guy on a trailer.
I think something similar to that is done.
I'm in agreement on the building things. A couple of years ago, we had some issue with our sewer stuff.
Last year.
Every time it rains, the sewer filled up or something.
That's right.
And I appreciate your comment about the rocks, and I brought that up a couple of times, I sit there and see all these potholes and then pile of rocks that are.
Yeah, those guys are making a great effort to make sure that those potholes and whatnot are not nearly as bad. And I think they're doing a good job. And, if that manager would just figure out a way to get that stuff paid, maybe we'd have a long-term solution, but
A good manager figure it out.
I'll get on him. See if he can.
Well, the problem is he's short staffed in this department, I believe.
Now, yes, he's down one.
Because the person that works there also cuts the grass.
Yeah.
And the grass has been a problem too,
Takes away something else.
but it's because he's short staffed, me and him talked about that,
Yeah.
Talking about David.
yeah.
Well, now, we talked about this yesterday, about your subcontracting grass cutting services.
So
Could he, in his budgets, take that out of his budget and do that himself? Could he work out a contract himself to cut whatever grass you're speaking of?
So here's how the contract that we have works. Anything in town is cut by our contract company, Redcoats, who also does the schools. Now, anything out of town is cut by the water sewer landfill department.
Whoever.
And that's, your well houses,
Well
your
house.
tanks, your, some of your facilities outside of Snow Hill, like the animal shelter. That's one that comes to mind. Things of that nature.
And they don't need to get the lot we got there beside Twin Oaks Tavern,
In Murray.
yeah.
That's
still there?
Is that a county site? Maury site.
That used to be a Julian Jones site.
The county owns it, so I don't know who. It's a piece of
Julian
property
Jones
the
used to cut that
county
grass back when I lived in Murray.
bought. Right there beside the water building, the old water building there, like you're going to four-way on the right.
Right.
I'll show them.
Okay. Yeah, we'll make sure that gets cut down. I was gonna say another one that David is cutting is EMS 2 and 3 in the ball field.
Right.
So,
And the ball field's a lot.
yeah, it is. It's a big location.
Well, I used to
Because
cut.
when it gets about this high, I start getting phone calls. And I don't know why. Because ain't nothing to see out there. But I do.
Oh, you're talking about the Murray ball.
But we still want that to be cut nicely, and we're gonna work on getting staffed completely so that we can maintain that even more appropriately,
Because
okay?
they would use that for a helicopter land or what.
Right.
That's,
Could you subcontract all that grass you're talking about cheaper than you could hire another employee to, since he's short one? We talked about that the other day as well.
so there's probably a break even there as to why we kept the out of county stuff in-house versus the in-county stuff out of house.
That's the state how they figure it out. Contract.
I am not gonna ask.
We know
the
those
state.
attorneys used to cut it off.
What's the long-term plan for that more ball field property?
Mooring ball field? Well, that's for the board of commissioners to direct the manager as to what's best use for that property.
Sell it.
More.
Well,
So,
to me, that
I mean-
property is wonderful for a helicopter landing pad.
There's a guy in North County, the Eagle Scout Project, you know anything about that terrain?
Yeah.
Created a helicopter landing by North County EMS for,
I think
that's
it's,
what I've been hearing.
I think it's a good asset in Maury, especially where it's located in the land. It's only could meet different requirements in the future for us. If you need to
We need to
relocate
build a
something.
building or relocate something, we got it.
We made sure that those lights from the old ball field
Right.
still work. So during a hurricane, that's a nice staging area north of the creek. We've got south of the creek, we've got a couple areas actually north of the
And
creek.
it's on
So,
sewer. So
It's
a
on
big deal.
sewer, that's wonderful. So really what you've done unknowingly or maybe knowingly is you have really improved the county's emergency management.
How bad, I ain't been by there because you got it covered up from where I can see where I used to play ball now with that new EMS building. Is it, usable? I mean, if you cut, is it still in ballpark
It's
formation?
just grass, but the lights are still there.
lights.
The lights are there, everything else is gone.
There's no fence. You can,
The
if
fence
you go
is
to a
gone.
Maury ballpark, you can go access it.
The dugouts are gone, concession stands gone.
Oh, okay.
And the
But
fire
you can put
department
it
got
back.
a lot of that stuff.
You still have enough room for a ball field and
It's just grass.
View
Yeah,
and-
yeah. It's all even land now. It's not, a
Yeah.
ball field patch or whatever.
as
It's-
much
it's
as
grass.
people pay to rent a ball field, why can't you just get it back up to shape and get $500, $1,500 a weekend for it? when they're renting these over here. I mean, and it's still a landing pad. I mean, you know, you fix it up and let the guy who's renting it keep the grass cut.
If that's the direction of the board.
But I just, I didn't realize, I thought it was gone. I mean, I thought all that new.
No, they just don't wear
From
everything
now to
down
three, it looks like it's gone.
because it was it was in bad shape. I mean, the dugouts,
And that
concession stands,
Bad shape.
everything was, it was in bad shape.
We fenced in the parking area where all the trees are, but the backside is all accessible from our ballpark.
Anything else on there too?
No. Eric, you got something to
Well,
say?
I'm curious about what you said earlier, when the introduction to school system requested money, but the money wasn't there. What action were they requesting?
I believe their request was 300.
The school system had requested money, but you said the money wasn't there.
Yeah.
So what action were they requesting that money for? You know?
So they didn't really tell me specifically what it was for. They just told me that the request was.
So, school, that's a correct answer.
What?
I think it had to do with some salaries.
I have it somewhere.
I think it had to do with salaries.
But these little things. Well, I've got it. I believe it was $300,000 more. I didn't have it in the budget. Did you pick everything up off that stack from the floor?
Not everything off the stack, but there's other stuff laying on
There was a
top.
bushel basket.
Just
full of
leave it there. Anyways,
This is salaries.
yeah, I don't know what it was for, but that is, if you remember, there are two contributions to the school. One is current expense. That is the county's appropriation to the school that they can use for teacher pay, they can use for things of that nature. Then there's another one called capital outlay. That's a percentage of Article 40 and 42 sales tax. When that's transferred over, that's called capital outlay. That's used for desks, land, facilities, stuff of that nature. There's restrictions on what it can be spent on. So,
Did we have a contract with them in this last year, their contract?
yeah, it's unofficial. It's a handshake agreement of 3-year deals.
A contract with who?
A handshake.
Handshake.
A commitment to the schools from our contributions to them for 3 years. Typically.
We had, in my time, we had done 3 years. COVID screwed that up a little bit because of some uncertainties and some extra monies from the state and the feds. But anyways, any more questions on landfill? If not, we'll move to transportation. Transportation has experienced a big change. If you recall, we had a longtime director move on to Pitt County. And in that transition, what we found was that she worked a lot and some additional staffing was needed. When additional staffing came on, we found that our expense went up according to the increase in expense, according to the number of staff. And then we had the CARES and the ARPA funding. And when the state legislature reduced or stopped that funding, when that funding ran out, it actually went below pre-COVID numbers. So there was a bit of a hole. So what you're going to see this year that's not common is you are going to see a transfer from the general fund to the transportation fund to prop it up for a year as we continue to work down that difference. I think the staff in transportation is doing a phenomenal job working through some different ways to generate more revenue to cover the expense as it is an enterprise. So I think another year and we'll have it. But right now, I just want you to be fully aware of what's going on in there.
I think she's doing a good job.
She is. She is. Great department.
She takes it
And
close.
it said, back in band, 75% is federal grant.
85,
I think it's 85.
85, 85, 15.
I think that's right. I think that's right. But it's a good department. It's a growing department.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's federal.
It's a much needed service.
And we'll get the rate structure figured out to where it'll cover so that we can have a nice self-sufficient department, as it should be, as an enterprise. Okay, that's, if you don't have any transportation questions, I don't put in the explanations on the fire departments. The fire departments, if they ask for a certain revenue, in the past, you have allowed them to have it. So I just put it in there as they want it to meet their requirements. But that is the major funds of our budget. It's a nice balanced budget. It follows the state law, state requirements. And remember, I just want you guys to know, this is a financial forecast and a plan. I promise July, it's the third Monday in July. It'll be our first meeting in July. You're going to see a budget amendment because it's going to immediately start changing. It's a plan that's going to deviate. It's going to meet the needs of the department heads and the functions they request and require to perform their services and functions. Okay? So it's a living, breathing document. That's really all I have for you. Please ask questions. Let me know what your thoughts are.
ABC store.
ABC store.
All right, we're making payments on that. Was it?
No.
Done. Go through it.
We've given the money that we had in escrow, I'll call it
Yeah,
in
right.
a reserved fund balance.
Every
for
June,
them.
every June 30th, whatever the ABC commission has as a balance by state law, you have to give it to the county commission, Then they decide how they so choose to take that profit.
I think what he was saying was, we've given all the money back that we held.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
For them.
All that has been,
For their building.
Right, yeah.
So now in their operations costs, they're going to operate the store and make any debt service payment they may or may not have, that we're not privy to. And the remainder will follow the state law and be given back to them.
now that, let's say it's 35,000 this year and I don't have,
Sure.
I don't know what exactly, but it's been running 35 to 50 range.
Mhm.
And sales are up on this store, beating last year's sales of 2 stores. One store is beating 2 stores.
I actually think,
And that's excluding January because you can't compare apples with apples with the grand opening and all the extra stuff. So we don't even count that in our numbers.
honestly, in the revenue side, I had a higher number coming from ABC because of the efficiency created.
Yeah,
I knew there
like I
was-
said, I know it's, let's say it's $50,000. At that time, the ABC profit will be offered, and at that time, the ABC board can ask the same thing they've asked in the past: can you hold it for us, or can you give it to us one more year, or whatever, you know? And then, so that's how that.
Okay, we're good.
Yeah. Questions, Derek?
So we just talked about, everybody asked questions about the fire department. I want to follow up on that first responders being delayed thing. And I'm hearing bits and pieces about certain fire department wanting more money like fire department. So I think we need to discuss that and get the whole story, because I'm hearing bits and pieces of it. So I'd like to know what the full story is there.
Okay. Good bet. What else? Yes.
I ain't got nothing to do.
I just want to make one comment. This thing was real hard. You read this thing about 7 or 8 o'clock at night. My eyes start to get weak, so you try to improve the format a little bit.
Well, maybe I'll get it to you early.
Well, I will say, in fact, I got it highlighted in orange. Page 59 is first out, and that's the first page I happen to have that day. And I'm looking at 24-25 actual 121.8, and you had a budget of 194.8. And that's when I first like, well, damn, Kyle missed that tremendously. Then I looked over at the requested, and that really just started it took me about like I said, 2 or 3 hours, like, to trying to finally kick myself in the butt for not figuring out that it was, and I understand someone else might have had the
So
same.
don't kick yourself in the butt. We've been doing this for 11 years. Eddie was in yesterday and we had the same talk.
And it was a lot easier looking at the page 60 to 143. It gave you a little bit better. It was
Actual printout. Yeah.
actual printout.
Unis document, not the.
Then I felt like I wasn't looking at the right document. So I went back to this page and I found another, so it worked out.
So we'll continue to work.
I have, just sure.
I'm sick, I'm sorry.
Continue to work on presentation so that, to like ease the reading. But I just want you all to have comfort and, in the document. I think it's a good document. It's going to change on July, whatever that third Monday is, I promise, with a budget amendment. But this is a great starting point for the next fiscal year. I think we hit all the major things we're supposed to hit. Department heads, as far as I know, are pleased. They can live with it.
I think between Kyle and Trey, and they got the new girl up front here to help put these together. I wanted to thank all of them because I was out sick.
Yeah.
Couldn't be here. So things are a little bit different from what they normally are, but they did a fabulous job and I thank you all very much.
We certainly miss Kathy while we were trying to put this all together.
And next year I'll be retired and won't be a part of this.
I do want to make one comment about the format online. The format is like it presented here, straight across. You have to scroll back over and over just to see that the other number. And I noticed some people like Wayne County and they turn it upside down so people can see it. I think that might be a better online form. You understand what I'm saying, correct?
What do you mean, printing it on portrait instead of landscape?
We'll take a look at it.
Yep. So I know we got here at 8:30. It's about 11-ish. Do we want another budget workshop? Do we need another budget workshop? Or do you feel comfortable in the information given to make a comfortable vote in the affirmative to pass this for our fiscal plan for fiscal year 25-26?
I don't have no problems with this.
Okay.
You can always have a budget.
Yep, we can always adjust.
You can always adjust as it needs.
They say, well, I have another meeting in 30 days. We're going to amend the budget, you see.
I promise you, that's just how it works.
Normally that's how it goes.
Isn't that how life is anyhow?
Now, I'll tell you, compliments to the department heads on that,
Yeah.
because they're watching closely. And even in that short window of time, they're seeing areas that they can make more accurate, the forecast for the remainder of the year, and they make it, I know at the end of the year, we still do a larger budget amendment and clean things up. But that budget amendment, that end of year budget amendment has decreased substantially.
And we have the public hearing June 2nd, right?
Yeah.
For the budget,
Yes.
For the budget.
if you guys are comfortable with it.
Well, I've already expressed my other interest about the Parks and Rec situation where, we were buying, if y'all didn't notice, we've been averaging $60-some thousand on buying stuff to resell. And this year it was 16.5 or something. Last year it was 16.5. So another $50,000 drop.
Well, to that point, I'll add, you gotta remember 7/12. 7/12. Is that?
No, this was, I think it was, I think it's I thought that was the end of what number's that?
11/5/11. So that's gonna be page.
I had that highlighted.
21. No, that's farmer's market.
24?
Yeah, right there, 24 actual, 16,652.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not a 24, that's a 24-25. But so that's, I didn't realize, I thought you were the only one that did that,
Well,
Trey. It didn't have the 25 up there. So it ain't going, but it's gonna miss $70,000 there.
So,
I mean,
so let's go ahead and look at the actuals. Hey Sandy, are you on?
She is.
Yes, sir.
You print out the actuals for recreation and bring them our way?
Sure thing.
I appreciate it.
You want
Let's take
just
a look
current
at that.
fiscal year?
I want to alleviate, what?
I'm sorry, do you want just current fiscal year?
Yes.
No, I've
Let's alleviate any.
I've got two grandkids playing. One's playing Monday, Wednesday, one's playing Tuesday, Thursday. So I'm out there 4 nights a week now. So, well, I try to make it 4 nights. I've been averaging about 2.5 out of 4, but I just walk the crowd and I watch stuff, and it's just, and I've been to other Parks and Rec places, and they're making money off their parks. I mean, they're making a lot of money off their Parks and Rec miscellaneous stuff.
Kelly told me,
Sessions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So.
Kelly told me the other night, he said, busy day ever been in the concession stand.
I spoke to Malcolm yesterday about some conversations we've been all having, and he told me the weeknight revenues that they're making, and I was very pleased to hear it. So I'd imagine what you are seeing and you're taking issue with, that I hope we are going to alleviate.
Yeah.
Is just, that 7/12 thing.
I thought $3 too far.
Well, I get 2 every night, so yeah, it's and then I got to buy nachos with cheese, and then I get 2 grandkids playing and 2 more hanging out, 2 others hanging out, and I got to buy 4 snow cones at $5 a piece.
Funny road they are.
It was kind of funny.
I could have went to damn Kings Dominion the other day, cheap.
Lonnie Booth jumped on me about the price of a hot dog out there.
Yeah.
And he said, why did Kyle raise the prices of hot dogs? I said, Kyle didn't do it. He said, yes, he did. I said, no, he didn't. I said, Kyle don't get involved in that. He was sitting there. I said, Kelly, who raised the price on hot dogs? Kelly said, I did.
Mhm.
That's his son.
Yeah.
Because they
Lonnie
were complaining
Bruce's
about it
son, Lonnie
going
Bruce's
to
son.
And so Kelly went up on the price. They were selling a 20-ounce drink for $2. And it was costing them,
$1.10.
yeah, I mean.
That's what I was telling you about buying off the truck. Buying off
So-
the truck is 30% more wholesale cost than buying it at Sam's Club. I mean, for example.
You're exactly right. Malcolm is supposed to be checking the contract with Minji's and bringing it back. And, we're trying to implement some of the things we talked about.
Yeah, well,
Recollection, long-term plan about adding another one. That's still on that plan or what?
It's something I'm willing to talk about, something I know I'm hearing from you guys. We've got to find a revenue stream that will support that expenditure, unless you want to designate millage or whatnot from the current tax rate towards that expense.
Yeah.
That's up to you, Mr. Commissioner. If you want to spend, let's do it.
well, I'm gonna probably always vote for spending money on recreation. Because I think that's one of the biggest economic development engines you got in the county.
Yes, it's
All recreation, not baseball, not just tennis, whatever. I think all recreation.
I forgot.
Anytime we put kids in structured recreation programs, you're teaching them responsibility, teamwork, the positive things. If you can keep them actively involved in scheduled programs like that.
That aspect as well as the economic development.
And it's not.
Support of that,
That's a byproduct.
Yeah, I was out there the other night and, I'm just using Spencer's, Spencer Dale child out there, but his grandparent from out of county comes and visits. He ain't the only one that has people out of county coming in to watch kids play, and they buy a $3 hot.
Well,
But you got, 47 senior.
Later on
Yes, sir.
is about other teams coming in here to play. Because they're all not paying the money.
Other players of the teams.
They're not paying it like Hitchcock County, they're not paying us any money to play.
Are they paying to be part of the league, but they're not paying an extra when we think they should?
Because if we charge them any money, they'd be eligible to play in the All-Stars.
Okay.
So that's
Oh,
right.
I ain't thought about that aspect. Well, I talked to Scott Austin, the other day, head of Lenore County Parks and Rec. And, they do not charge extra fee. And they are not eligible for All-Star game either, so, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, man.
Guys, as we transition from budget to actuals,
Thank you.
are there any other questions regarding the proposed budget before,
Thank you.
I guess we stop the budget workshop.
Candy, when's this as of
Today.
today? So we're at 24,000 on that item that was 16. And we're what, 10.5 out of 12 into it. 10 and a half months into it. So we might get to the 35 number by June 30th. Agree?
Well, remember, this is an expenditure that you're looking at, not a revenue.
No, I'm just saying purchased items.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we've been purchasing $65,000, $70,000. And now we're down to about, probably looks like it's gonna be around 30, 35.
Should have.
Hey, it's all gonna get better.
I think also you need to look at, we got somebody new that was doing the budget stuff, looking after the stuff. Last year we got a building.
We've seen some improvements in the budgeting and the management and whatnot in the recreation department. Jeremy came on as a consultant to help us with that. We're looking to hire someone permanently in the foreseeable future to make it so we don't need to even have that private contractor come in to assist in that effort. I hope that we continue to see improvement, reducing expenditures and increasing revenue.
Look at line item 54200 on page 2. Based on our conversation in the past,
Which one? Which number?
540-200.
Concessions commissions.
Zeros.
That was, we're to 10% to 20%. I mean, that's,
So that'd be a revenue, not an expenditure.
This is an expenditure report.
I'm sorry, I stand corrected.
You're all right. You're all
I
right.
stand corrected.
So that was actually something the chairman and I went over yesterday. We have 6 line items in the recreation department that are revenues. And they're scattered throughout 11,130 and 11,160. And if I'm not mistaken, in this year's current proposed budget, total recreation expenditure was $488,000.
$883.14.
Okay, and then revenue, proposed revenue was $177,000. So we have an investment, $310,000 in recreation. And if you recall in the past, I've told you again and again, 250 to 300,000 is just the cost of having it. We're trying to get the rest of the programs to be self-sufficient or pay for themselves. And I told the chairman when we talked about it the other day, I said, you know, it's not 250 to 300, it's 310. I'll try to tighten up. We'll look for an efficiency to get it back down into that number. But just know it's close. That ballpark number is close. It's holding true to what we have talked about in the past. Okay.
What you said on your tax base?
2.5.
2.5.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I have a question about the budget. What's the situation on the new senior center? Are we looking at other options that governmental debt came through?
So in the past, we've applied to the CFR for the 25 budget. And there were 2 continuing resolutions, one in December, one in March. And the one in March became stopgap funding, which is going to take it to September of 2025. And then the feds will create a 26 budget. I have reapplied for that grant in that process. Hopefully we can be fortunate enough to be awarded again. We were the #1 project in the 25 budget. I don't think you got to be #1, but I think you need to be to actually get that funding. So fingers crossed, we can be funded. Really trying to find a supplement to use other people's money, funding sources, funding streams to assist us in the improvement and the advancement of our departments.
I just like to say this about recreation. I know it costs us a lot of money. But I have not heard the first parent complain about how much it costs for their youngin' to play ball.
No, you won't hear that.
And I think it's a good thing. If it costs us $500,000 a year, it's, you hear complaints about everything else we spend money on, but that's one thing you really don't hear complaints about. We spent money on their youngin' so they can play ball. I think it's a good thing.
Well, the reason I told you that 250 to 300 is I wanted to maybe state a benchmark that we would hold ourselves accountable to, give or take. And after review in the proposed 25-26 budget, we're a smidge, we're just a skosh over that benchmark that I've tried to put in your minds about the cost to operate that function, that department. Yes, Chairman.
We are Green County boys. It's a little bit over, it's not a skosh, whatever, it's a little bit.
Well, like Bobby's got a good idea, you know, to generate some money to come in there to help with this.
I want to backtrack on something Ray said earlier about that convenience sites. And we were talking about another building. Is there any way you can make it like a list of which building or in the most need with them?
I can ask David to do that. I know David did a building last year, and I believe there might be a building in there this year too. So that's
Taylor Road.
that might be a
I know it's a bigger expense now than what it used to be.
project.
We have kind of an unofficial plan of replacement. You've got to have it.
Yeah, but now, I mean, it's a big difference because it's got to be handicap accessible. We're used to, they did. I mean, it's a big expense to do that, but I know we got some buildings that do need to be replaced. And some of them need to be put on some level ground.
Where's there,
And find it.
there's a
It's
guy,
just like it when it poured.
Yeah.
When it rains, it all runs under that building. And it's just washed out there. And they can put dirt all they want to, but it ain't gonna stop it when it rains. I mean, you know.
Yeah.
And the sewer's pipe on top of the ground, it freezes during the winter months. Cause it gets water in it, it freezes. So he has to go home and use the bathroom.
I talked to a detective that retired from Lenore County, Craven County, I believe it was, and he's purchased 9 transfer truck trailers, cubicles or whatever. He's stacking them on, he's building them a house for his retirement project. And, now I know this is funny, but I go to landfill at least every 10, 15 days. We got all those buildings over to the left over there. I could remodel one of those and put it in sites and like they're doing these other houses. You know, it's a possibility to save you a lot of costs when you got buildings out there. Ain't nothing in them, I guess. That you bought that you got back from behind.
Conversation on budget. If there is none, do we want another budget meeting?
2 or 3 of them. You just told him.
Jerry Bobby there, I don't.
Jerry, we need another budget meeting.
Yeah, I'm good.
Ben,
Good.
Bobby, Derek, you need another budget meeting?
I don't think so. I got my question answered, so.
All right. I know we're waiting on our lunch. We're gonna grab a little lunch together, but, we got. If there's no other questions, I'll ask the chairman to adjourn.
I have a motion for
Move to
adjourn.
adjourn.
Have a motion and a second to adjourn. Any further discussion? One comment. Thank you, county manager. Thank you to our administration. Thank you to our staff, our department heads. This was put together very professionally. And it's a pleasure to deal with the budget today versus what we were dealing with years ago. Those in favor of the motion signify so by saying aye. Aye. Those no, the ayes have it, the motion's carried.
All right.